for the sake of time, we're going to go ahead and get started if everyone can take their seats. Was that? No, not at all. All right, thanks for everybody for joining us today. I know we have quite a large virtual audience as well, so we thank you for joining us. My name's Becca Ryan. I'm with Madison County Employment and Training, so we're down, closer to the St. Louis metro area. And I'm the manager for our regional apprenticeship hub.
Hello, everybody. My name is Abby Helms. I also work with Madison County Employment and Training, and I am the program coordinator for our Gateway Apprenticeship Hub grant. All right, so we will go ahead and get started. Just a little bit about our grant. So basically, in the summer of 2022, U.S. Department of Labor awarded Madison County and the greater St. Louis region workforce innovation areas the Apprenticeship Building America grant. So our grant is a 4-year, $5.8 million initiative, and that's where the Gateway Apprenticeship Hub was born. So we are an ABA 1 Category 4 recipient. And our project is aiming to register at least 750 new apprentices across the region, and really exciting, it represents the first joint initiative between Illinois and Missouri workforce areas. And we have a goal of at least 70% of those participants being from the underserved and underrepresented communities. I think right now we're at a low 90, so we're really happy with that percentage. And then our target industries for our apprenticeships are education, healthcare, and bioscience.
So back when this grant was first written, which was pre-Abby and myself, it was very much written under that time frame of pandemic resiliency, what lifted up our region during the time that we were coming out of that. And obviously I think the entire country realized the value between our healthcare employers and our teachers, and that's really where we started seeing a pretty rapid decline in our teacher ed workforce. And then being in the St. Louis metro, we have a lot of large national and multinational bioscience employers like Bayer, Pfizer, Millipore-Sigma, Thermo Fisher, the list goes on, and their workforce was also in a state of dwindling. So that's kind of where those industry selections came from.
All right, so we just have a visual here that we wanted to show you of all the counties that we work with. So originally, we had about 9 counties in Illinois, 5 in Missouri, and then we realized that some of our community colleges, their districts, we were leaving out, and we didn't want to have to deny those participants just because they weren't in our initial counties. So now, as you can see with Illinois, we are in 19 counties, and we're still in 5 within Missouri. So we did scale that. We are hoping to reach more counties here within the next couple months. And we do provide technical assistance, not just for the counties that are here, but basically all throughout Illinois. We provide technical assistance.
Yeah, I think that's all of that.
All right, and then just some current progress numbers that we have that we wanted to share with you all. So currently we've had 25 registered apprenticeship programs developed. And so that would be from the start of our grant in 2022. We've got 60 registered apprenticeship programs expanded. So we are expanding quite rapidly. I feel, every quarter we've got quite a bit of employers that we're able to expand those programs. So that's something that we're really proud of. We've got 16 pre-apprenticeships developed since the beginning of our grant. We've had 391 individuals enrolled in that pre-apprenticeship developed by those grant funds. Currently, as of today, we have over 800 total stakeholders engaged, and we've currently given out $170,000 of employer incentives with our grant funds.
So this grant is broken out into a few different primary activities. The first and largest portion of this is in pre-apprenticeship funding. So what is a pre-apprenticeship program? For us, we tried to think as broad as possible so that we weren't pigeonholing an individual into one industry or into one position, and we're also being holistic in the approach and meeting individuals where they're at. So, for us, it's really how can we help an individual meet the minimum qualifications for hire? And that looks different for every position, and so it really is this individualized approach to get an individual where they need to enter into the program. This also includes job shadowing and exposure experiences. Soft skills training is, I think everybody can agree, a key piece of this process. Given that individuals are coming in at different areas of experience, whether they're coming out of high school and maybe haven't had a professional level position before, or they're somebody who's been in a work program or a position that has different skills attached to it. It's really about building confidence in the participants, and that's really what we hear from every program we work with, is that their individuals are coming into the apprenticeship, they're going to the employer with a lot more confidence than they have in the past. And it's really building out a broader talent pipeline by reaching into populations that maybe hadn't seen these opportunities for themselves in the past. So with that, we've had a lot of pre-apprenticeship programs developed and expanded, both in Illinois and in Missouri. It's kind of a large list, but the way that we've structured out these programs and ensured that there's a seamless flow from pre-apprenticeship into registered apprenticeship programs is having really strong intermediaries who host both the pre-apprenticeship and the registered apprenticeship program. Really streamlines that process of getting to the employer. So we have programs kind of full service. Over in Missouri, the peer support specialist program is incredibly valuable to getting more experienced and quality people in the field to support individuals going through recovery. Early childhood is obviously a large one, and we're really trying to embed those programs in our community colleges, as well as key community partners like YWCA of Metro St. Louis. And then really with this grant, when we got started, my boss said that nothing was gonna happen with the education programs and that it was all gonna be healthcare and bioscience. He was wrong, super wrong.
Very wrong.
That was Tony Furman, wrong. And so we've really flipped that on its head and been able to build out a really robust pre-apprenticeship and registered apprenticeship pipelines for teacher education, both in Missouri and in Illinois. With that being said, all of those programs then feed into registered apprenticeship programs, and we've got pretty broad offerings. A lot of our partners are hosting multiple programs. When you think the community colleges, they're hosting programs across so many different industries, not even just those that we work within, but also getting into the trades as well. And for each of these programs, there is an even wider list of employers attached to these programs, especially for teacher ed. Yeah. We have dozens and dozens of schools attached to each of our teacher ed programs, but even when you look at the healthcare programs, it's really not about having one employer serviced, it's creating a broad enough pipeline that it can serve all of the employers in our area. So not necessarily going to go through all of these, it's quite a list, but if you have any questions about a specific program, feel free to either toss them in the app or ask when we get to the questions portion later, or reach out to us. We're happy to meet as well.
All right, so we'll move on. So with our grant, we do have two types of funding that we can provide. So one is the pre-apprenticeship, and one is the employer incentive. So we'll go a little bit over just what the employer incentive is, and then in the next slide, we'll get into kind of our rules through the Gateway Apprenticeship Hub. So the employer incentive is really just dedicated funding for employers that are agreeing to participate in the registered apprenticeship programs and hire these apprentices. So as you can see here, there's many different ways that these employers can use these incentive funds. With our grant, we are not participant-based. So what's really important is that they are taking these funds and using them to build out the program and that infrastructure for the program. So they can use it for incentive pay for those apprenticeship mentors, incentive pay for progression evaluation, any training supplies that they would need for the program, costs related to the startup of the program, train the trainer costs, development of curriculum, and any classroom education piece of that. So really with our grant, we're kind of specific on one thing, which I'll get into in the next slide, but other than that, these employers can use it as they feel that it's going to benefit these programs.
And I think the piece of that has been beneficial is that it doesn't have to be spent on a per participant basis, even though it's distributed based on the number of individuals they hire. They're really able to feed that more into, Mac Medical, for example. They need a 3D printer. It's something that they do largely. They build out medical supplies. And that's not something that they just generally have around. And with those funds, they were able to purchase that and then use that as they're training their apprentices rather than having to spend it specifically on one individual.
Yes. Okay, so we will move on to kind of how we are using it through our grant, through the Gateway Hub. Okay, so the employers can receive up to $850 per participant, so that's the max that they can receive. So as you can see here on our table, it'll show how many apprentices they've hired and what they're able to get for each apprentice, even though they don't have to use it like Becca just mentioned, per participant. So 1 to 10 apprentices is $850, 11 to 25, $750, 26 to 50 is $700, and then anything above 51 is $650. So the one thing that I mentioned earlier that employers can't use this for is any direct participant support costs, because our grant doesn't, deal with the participant. So that would be any wages, any barrier reduction services, just really any direct participant costs. So they can't use it on that. And the process is very simple for the employers to get this incentive. I've been working on this for probably the last 8 months, really just trying to talk to employers, get on Zoom calls, go in person, make sure that they know that this process is not difficult. So really, all they need is to sign an employer agreement, which we worked with the state's attorney's office for Madison County to get that going. So it's maybe a 3 to 4 page document. It's nothing big at all. So signing that, they would have to submit the invoice for the number of participants. That way we know how much to give them. So for example, if they've hired 12 participants, the first 10 would get $850, and then the next 2 would get the $750, and that's how they would put that on the invoice for us. So they'd have to submit that along with the W-9 for payment, and then we would need to make sure that the enrollment documentation, that we have that as well. So we need to make sure that the employer has signed an Appendix D linking them to that apprenticeship program, and then we use the 671s, which we'll get into a little bit later with Rapids, to make sure that they are actually an apprentice. Yep.
Yeah. So with that being said, we have that goal of 750 apprentices. We're sitting about 436. That kind of changes a little bit every day as more individuals are enrolled. But we have such a robust pipeline of pre-apprentices currently in the works that we don't have any concerns about hitting that 350, especially as we get into our fall enrollment period. Because our programs are largely tied to the community colleges and universities, just given the industries we're working within, we see the same kind of rapid increase in numbers when you hit the fall semester or you hit the spring semester when everybody starts their programs. So we anticipate between our education programs, our healthcare programs, we're anticipating 350 at least in August and September as those programs really kind of explode. And this grant is an infrastructure grant. It's about how can we build out a system that can support these programs. So the first couple years were a lot less individual enrollment, and we're much more making sure that these programs had the staffing that they need, the curriculum that they need. And then now we're in the time of, people are making it through these pre-apprenticeships that were developed and are now getting into these registered apprenticeship programs. So as you can see, most of our participants are in the education programs, whether that's teacher education, paraprofessionals, early childhood, kind of full scope there. That's where a lot of our individuals are at. Healthcare is also a really great one. There's several really good programs that we work with for our healthcare programs, and then 19 bioscience apprentices, and those are some of them in a lab setting at an employer like Washington University. Some are more in like agriculture science, working with Bayer in Jerseyville. So it has been interesting to have individuals from inner city St. Louis coming into a rural Illinois community and really getting engaged there, but then also being able to pull from that community to keep them in town rather than leaving after they graduate high school.
Okay, so we're going to get into one of our technical assistance tools that helps us with compliance and with partnership, and that is RAPIDS. I'm sure a lot of you know what RAPIDS is, but if you don't, it stands for Registered Apprenticeship Partners Information Data System. So RAPIDS is a national database used by the Department of Labor, and it really tracks everything that we need for these apprenticeship programs. So it helps to manage and monitor the apprenticeship data. It ensures that these programs are meeting the national standards, and it really tracks the progress, certifications, and completions for our apprentices. So it's all tied into this really user-friendly database. I took kind of pride in becoming an expert on RAPIDS, and I'll explain why on the next slide, but just wanted to go over in case you weren't aware what this program was and what we use it for.
And it also tracks each individual employer and their individual wage schedules. Our programs all have kind of program minimum wage schedules, but each employer, has a little bit different, especially when you get into the healthcare and bioscience industries. There's a lot of differences in what one employer may pay compared to another. So that's also all tracked in the RAPID system.
Yes. Okay, so what I'm really excited about and what we kind of discovered, I don't know, 6 or 8 months ago, was being able to have visibility of RAPIDS. This was huge in supporting the apprenticeship success from the apprentice's standpoint, but also for our partners. So what is visibility? It's basically we have access to the RAPIDS system with sponsor permission. That's very important. We don't do anything without our sponsor's permission. And it allows us to view, active, completed new apprentices. It allows us to really view everything. So the occupations, the employer information that Becca was talking about, making sure that everything is, filled out correctly, we've inputted what we need to, and we're staying compliant with the U.S. Department of Labor.
And the really big piece of why we started doing this was that we work directly with ATRs both in Illinois and Missouri and help apprenticeship and training representatives from U.S. Department of Labor and help get programs registered through our technical assistance and kind of make that process a little bit easier on the ATRs who are largely understaffed.
Yeah.
Bruce Hallam, who services like the whole bottom half of the state, is always running around. So with that, they're maybe not checking in with some of these partners as much as we are, whereas we're talking to them pretty regularly. And we then had our ATRs reaching out 6 months, 8 months after a program started saying, well, they don't have any employers or participants in here, what's going on?
Yeah.
And it was that they either, the person who was trained on RAPIDS maybe left, there's always turnover happening, or had never really learned how to get into the system or set up a time to train with the ATR on how to utilize that system. And so that's where the need was of okay, we got to make sure they're getting all these people in the system, because otherwise we can't track them as actual registered apprentices if they're not actually in the program. So that's why this started, and it's become just a really great tool.
Yeah, I'm really pumped about it. So how to get access for our partners. So our sponsor grants either verbal or written permission for us to get in just as really a view, and we can edit, but we don't do anything unless they ask us or we get permission from them. We won't do anything. So we will pull what we need to out of there. So for our reporting purposes, we will pull those ETA 671 forms, but we don't edit anything unless we're asked to do so. So then basically once we get their permission to do that, we just do a quick 2 to 3 step approval. We add our contact information into their RAPIDS. It will get approved by the ATR because basically everything in RAPIDS, each step has to be approved by the ATR, so they are very well aware of what's going on. And then I'm able to talk to our partners and our sponsors and make sure that they have the support that they need. So not all of our partners needed this. We have a very, wide range of experience with Rapids.
And capacity.
And capacity, yes.
Some people are better staffed and were able to really take this on. They have an administrative team member who took this on and runs it.
Yes.
And there are others who don't. When you look at the universities and community colleges, I'm sure most of you are aware that they're just as short-staffed as our school districts are.
Yeah.
And so sometimes you want to take on this program, but the administrative pieces fall to the wayside. And so this really assists in making sure that if they have the documentation, but they maybe don't have the time to get into Rapids and upload everything, I say we, Abby steps in and assists them with that process.
Yes.
Just to make sure it's all getting done and that they're staying compliant and that we're staying compliant.
Yes, so really it just depends on each partner. So I will meet with every single one and say, if you want this is available to you. If you don't feel comfortable with it, that's fine. We can go ahead and keep doing, what we're doing. But if they are comfortable with us having visibility, then I meet with them and I go through step by step what each tab needs to have, if they have any additional questions, and make sure that they're getting all the information in that they need. So it's been very beneficial for us and for our partners, and it just allows us to have that support and for them and just make sure that they feel like they have somebody in their corner that can help when they need help.
And they don't have to call Bruce all the time.
True. And I mean, to be honest, it's way easier to get a hold of me than with an ATR who's got a very large region. So we feel like, we're just able to help on both sides there. It really improves that communication and collaboration with sponsors. I feel like I've gotten so much closer with our partners just based off of helping them with this, with this database. So that's been amazing. And then of course, as we've mentioned, it helps with our reporting metrics and Department of Labor compliance. So really, I've been super excited about this, and we've had, I think, just great success with our partners in doing this. So our goal, of course, is to offer this customized technical assistance. We want to strengthen those partnerships, and we want smooth operations as much as possible. Not everything's perfect, of course, but we try to streamline it as much as we can.
So we're going to get into just some mini case studies and talk about how we got a program started, the various challenges or benefits that we felt as we got these programs going. So kind of back to the very beginning, and one of our earliest partnerships was with Special School District of St. Louis. They already had a healthcare pre-apprenticeship program, the Healthcare Stars pre-apprenticeship. It was largely career exploration, introduction into healthcare careers, some supportive services to get them in a spot where they were able to take on, more of a training program, and just that kind of exposure piece to make sure that the individuals who start the program and are being funded actually intend to finish the program. And the way that they've built this program out has been so successful. They have some of the highest CNA completion rates in the state of Missouri.
Yeah.
So they were that really great partner to learn about apprenticeships with. I think all of us come into it, and at least for me, I was tossed in and was like, there's resources out there, you'll figure it out. And so finding that partner that you can work with that has the patience to teach you all of the things that they've learned from their success, and then put you in a position to help the continued support of their program. So they had actually just lost funding for their pre-apprenticeship program. The source that they were getting it from just no longer was offering the funds to anybody, and so they were looking for something to help them pick that back up and continue running their programs. So we did have funds to support that. And then they have a couple employer partnerships, Bethesda Health Group and Parc Provence, that have such robust benefits packages for entry-level staff, and I think that that's so important as well. Tuition reimbursement programs and like more career exploration activities. I mean, you look at a senior living facility, especially a large community, and there's almost every position across healthcare coming through those facilities. And so it really is exposing individuals and then helping them move forward when they want to. And another great part of this is that their partner, their WIOA partner, St. Louis City, Slate, is entirely attached to this program. So every cohort, we all go out, we do a lunch and learn with all of the individuals, and then they have we owe a career specialist overseeing their progress in the program and funding it, because their program is entirely for underserved individuals in the St. Louis community. And so it really helped us visualize how the partnerships between our LWIA and these programs can function and be really beneficial for the individuals, but also for these programs to be successful with the high success rates that a program like Special School District has. Individuals are getting their CNA. Most of them are going on and getting their certified medical technician or medicine technician as well, which a lot of the hospitals or the senior living facilities in Missouri want, so that they can provide insulin to one of their patients. And so right off the bat, after 6 months, they're given the opportunity to get that additional certification. So it really is about not just your first step into healthcare, but providing them with the pathways to continue improving. And we really took that and tried to build it into everything else that we did. So finding a successful program and letting them or having them let you tag along and kind of learn from them makes it a lot easier to figure out how to do it right as you look at different industries or positions. Our next one, McKendree University. I presented on this, numerous times over last year, but at the last WIOA Summit, working with McKendree, it was very much building the plane while you're flying it. At the time that this program started, we kind of accidentally realized that they had developed an apprenticeship program, but there had been no teacher apprenticeship program registered in the state of Illinois at the time. And so, we talked to Bruce, and Bruce was like, I don't know how to do that. I'm gonna have to go ask somebody. Obviously, it was happening in other states. We've seen success. You look at Tennessee, who used COVID relief funds. Missouri has been doing teacher apprenticeships for a while. States all over, I think most states are doing teacher apprenticeships now, but Illinois hadn't quite figured it out yet. And we learned so much through this. Every state functions differently, and at the time of this, not only were we doing something new as far as the apprenticeship system, but also something new when you look at the Illinois State Board of Education and their requirements for teacher ed, making sure that the compliance across all of these different entities is being met. But with that, we were able to get creative, provide a program that directly serviced the needs of the school districts in our area. McKendree did a really broad survey of the school districts asking, what do you need? What they needed was to skill up the paraprofessionals that they had had working for them for 10 years, who have had no clear or accessible pathway to getting teacher licensed. And so what they did, especially because McKendree sits in a very rural area as well. So what they've done is build out an online program so individuals can take all of their classes from home or during their lunch break or their planning period as they're a para, and get those classes done without having to drive to a pretty rural school. Or, they have families at home and they're all working all day, and the school districts didn't want their paras to leave to go to class. They needed them on site. And then they're getting paid for their field experience that they're able to do in the same classrooms that they're working in, and they're getting paid for their student teaching as well, either as a paraprofessional or as a permanent sub. In some cases, school districts will hire an individual as a permanent sub for their student teaching period that last semester. With this, and I think these numbers are outdated at this point, but we have so many school district partners in the Metro East and Southern Illinois, but McKendree's got partners all over the state. They have people in Chicago doing this program. They have people in Las Vegas doing this program. Illinois has such a strict regulation on our teacher ed programs that our teacher ed programs are largely reciprocal all throughout the country, and it's something that has almost overwhelmed McKendree with enrollment because of how accessible they've made this program without compromising the quality of the program, which is obviously very important. Making it more accessible but not diluting the quality of the program was very important. And with this, I think the biggest thing that we've seen for McKendree was not only stronger relationships with the schools that they have individuals working at while they're doing their program, but also better relationships with the community colleges, and seeing these pathways as something that can benefit all parties along the way. McKendree accepts that they're a private university and they're more expensive, so if somebody has some bridge courses or gen ed courses that they maybe need to catch up on before they start this program, they recommend going to the community college and doing that and doing it for a lower cost. And they just transfer all of that over and an individual can start the program once they have all of those baseline classes done. And McKendree also has significantly reduced tuition. I think that that's something that all of our universities should be taking a look at. Is teachers don't make a whole lot of money. We collect a lot of wage data on what teachers are making. In between pairs and teachers is not a lot. And so McKendree reduced their tuition by 2/3.
It's $330, I think.
Originally, their on-campus tuition is like $1,100 per credit hour.
Yeah.
There's no way a paraprofessional can be paying that. And so they did reduce the tuition rates for this program to $330 a credit hour, which is a pretty significant change. And I think that that plays a large role in how successful they've been in expanding this program out, getting school districts bought into it. And they are working with several school districts who receive teacher vacancy funds from the state. And they're using that to help pay tuition for a lot of these individuals as well. We also work with Golden Apple in making sure that the students are taking on the least amount of cost as possible. Oh, and we developed a teacher mentorship training program. That's a new one. It's just launching now.
Yeah.
But not every teacher makes a good teacher mentor. Some people are stuck in their ways, and some teachers have been teaching for a long time, and maybe they don't want to take on a new person and really grab them under their wing. So teacher mentorship training program is the goal to be an incentive for these, McKendree calls them cooperating teachers who are overseeing individuals. And McKendree is then allowing these teachers to get their continuing education credentials through taking this, which they have to do anyway. So any incentives to get them bought in.
All right, so our third case study we have here is all about navigating setbacks. And this is with Southern Illinois University, Edwardsville. So this program was launched with a micro-credential pre-apprenticeship, really aimed at providing these participants with a structured pathway into that lab tech field. It began with really strong emphasis on career exploration, helping individuals understand their potential roles and what they want to do with their career. They're introduced to core laboratory skills, including safety protocols, basic equipment handling, data recording practices, and it incorporates an extensive hands-on training to really reinforce those competencies, help them to build confidence in that lab setting, and then prepare them for entry into the registered apprenticeship program. So, of course, as you're starting anything new, this is going to create challenges. So, the first challenge we had was really learning a new language. So, higher education staff may be very unfamiliar with some of our terms that we use, like standards of apprenticeship, related technical instruction, sponsorship, even their responsibilities. So just introducing them to that new language, I think we were also pretty much learning as well with them. So it was good that we were both doing it together. Really understanding the entirely new education and workforce framework together. And then, of course, registering programs with the U.S. Department of Labor, tracking apprenticeship progress, meeting compliance and reporting requirements. These are all new things. So that led us to those really long technical assistance sessions and just being able to go through it together and, really work together to understand kind of what we're getting into. But of course, make it easier as we learn more. Challenge 2 was organizational structure. Where does the apprenticeship live in the university structure? So basically, we have to fit these apprenticeships into some, traditional higher education framework. Coordination was needed between departments. You've got your academic departments, your career services, legal, and of course the administrative offices. So making sure that all the different pieces were being coordinated together. We wanted to define really clear roles, everybody's responsibilities and accountability, and that takes a lot of time. So just, really making sure that was our priority. And then we want to have good, collaboration with those different departments and administrative buy-in. So it can't just take one person. We all know that, so we all have to work together to make sure that we're sticking, with our same goal. And then our long-term goal is really just to fully integrate these apprenticeships into the university's talent development strategy and just make it a more streamlined process. And like I said, previously, nothing is perfect, but I feel like we were able to
It's
really
greatly
improve
improved.
that. Yeah.
You look at community colleges, and a lot of them already have workforce development built into it. I mean, non-credit programs have been around for a long time. Apprenticeships are fairly familiar to most of our community colleges. For a four-year university, it's all foreign.
Yeah.
And so it really was helping them find where that lives in that greater structure.
Yeah.
Is this centralized, or will it be separated out by department? And those conversations are, largely still going because, it's a pretty big system.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and then our third challenge, of course, is large companies. So we're dealing with really large employers sometimes. So many lacked the administrative capacity to manage these apprenticeship programs. There's obviously, legal teams. So there's layers upon layers of people that have to be talked to. And sometimes, our apprenticeship paperwork that, can go relatively quickly can take up to weeks, months, sometimes years to get that to go through legal teams.
Then you get them all signed, and then the person that had been your champion at that company leaves, and then you start over at the beginning, which we're currently experiencing.
Yeah, that's happened multiple times. So we're still dealing with this challenge, but and everybody's got a different hiring process, different ways. So what we try to do is just tailor to each specific employer as best as we can, and be flexible to what they need and where they are in the process. We always say this, we meet everybody where they are. So we really just try to be there to answer any questions, help as much as possible, and keep them, still engaged in the process. So. All right, so our next one is going to be connecting with underserved populations, and that's with STAR Inc. and Live Recovery Sober Living. So I'll explain a little bit about what each of these programs are. So STAR Inc. is a nonprofit organization based in St. Louis, Missouri. They are really committed to improving the quality of the early childhood education. They equip educators with the tools and training they need to succeed. So STAR provides comprehensive professional development aligned with national standards and adult learning principles. So they've got a CDA pre-apprenticeship and then the early childhood registered apprenticeship program. They offer customized training, hands-on workshops, and professional development programs designed to meet that credentialing requirement for the Child Development Associate, or the CDA. So their approach really respects the cultural backgrounds of early childhood professionals, and they have made a measurable impact in the St. Louis area, having trained dozens of childcare providers and serving hundreds of children through programs like Parents as Partners, which really fosters family engagement in the early learning space. And then we have Live Sober Living. So they've got the peer pre-apprenticeship that leads into the support specialist registered apprenticeship program. And a little bit about Live. They are a supportive, structured, sober living community designed to help individuals in recovery from substance use disorders and help them really transition back into independent living. The program offers a safe, drug-free environment along with accountability. They've got peer support and access to a lot of recovery resources.
And free counseling services.
And free counseling services, yes. So residents are encouraged to build healthy routines. They want to pursue employment or education and actively participate in a 12-step or other recovery-based programs. So both of these programs we love to work with. They're amazing. They're really designed with underserved populations in mind. They really offer holistic support that goes beyond just the technical training. They focus on key areas like digital literacy, emotional intelligence, financial literacy, and career navigation. They want to equip the participants with the life and the workforce skills that they need to succeed. So partnerships with higher education institutions expand those learning opportunities, while ongoing support and counseling ensure that individuals stay very engaged through their registered apprenticeship journey. So these community-based partners are essential to the support ecosystem. STAR and Live serve as very central hubs, offering individuals access to both resources and a very strong sense of community. So through these connections, participants gain the confidence they need to achieve that lasting stability. Collectively, these efforts guide individuals along a path they can be very proud of, and one that really fosters the long-term success in both their personal and their professional journeys.
I forgot about this one. This is a good one. One of our other things that we've really learned here is that community colleges are almost built to do this. And it's something that I think largely can assist with some of the enrollment problems that I think all of our higher institution or higher education partners are experiencing these days. So working with both Southwestern Illinois College, based in Belleville, and then Kaskaskia, which is a bit further into rural Illinois. These two, when we got engaged, were already kind of set up in a way to do these programs. They already had a lot of them, but maybe their success rates or enrollment rates weren't as high as they wanted them to be. They weren't sure how to market them. They're struggling to get employers fully bought into the program without having continued subsidies to pay for it, because really the goal of apprenticeships is for employers to be invested. But what we're able to do in working with the community colleges is have a really, really clean package to sell to employers, saying here's exactly the classes they're going to take. We have support coaches or academic advisors available to help them through every step of the process and make sure that they have all of the skills that they need to both enter the program and complete the program, and in a lot of cases, achieve the certifications that they're looking for. And these programs stretch outside of our industries. Both of these community colleges are doing healthcare programs. SWIC recently started an RN program finally, and we were really excited about that. In addition to CNA, LPN, medical assisting, and our education programs, seeing how we can get a paraprofessional. I mean, you don't have to have any college credits to be a paraprofessional anymore, which is great for getting people in the classroom, but then they're 4 years away from teacher licensure, which can be a huge barrier, and especially when you're working full-time, makes it pretty difficult to achieve that. And so building out those pathways of let's get them their first 2 years while they build up their skills in being an educator working as a paraprofessional, and then have a clean way that they can transition into a stackable credentialing program with an apprenticeship at a 4-year institution to complete that full degree and get their professional educator licensure. So these clean packages, taking them to employers, we had a lot of fragmented conversations at the beginning where maybe our other LWIA partner had already been over there to talk to the employer, and they said something a little bit different than what I said, and then the community college said something a little different, and maybe I don't fully understand the program. We're not specialists in everything, and so having the community college partner there has been essential in being able to really translate all that an individual is going to experience in going through one of their training programs. And we've also been reaching into Lewis and Clark Community College recently in setting them up to do these same programs. We're working with early childhood. We're having conversations of CNA apprenticeship programs that are embedded at an employer's site, so that an individual is able to go to work, take their classes on site, and go home and not have to drive out to campus to then do more classes. Transportation's a huge issue in the St. Louis Metro. That's on both sides of the river, so the most that you can cut down on that, that's what people really want, and it's that kind of community-based approach. And the community colleges grasp this and kind of just do it better than everybody else does. And so that's really where, if we can model this intermediary sponsor model off of what the community colleges have already been doing and getting the 4-year institutions to do this, or a community-based program like STAR or LIVE or YWCA of Metro St. Louis that are doing their own intermediary programs with, STAR has over a dozen employers on their early childhood program, and SWIC has employers everywhere on their programs, as do Kaskaskia. So it really is just clean. And then their financial aid offices have access to all of the different resources that could help an individual cover the cost of their program, or that could help an employer pay maybe a portion of training rather than paying all of it, because there are various other funding streams available. These are just pictures of some of the awesome cohorts that we've had. Special school district, there a lot of the healthcare programs that you see. The top right corner is STAR in their first early childhood cohort. We've got Bob Dixon, he's a star at SIUE, does our laboratory technician training, and really makes it accessible in a way that, laboratory sciences haven't always been. And then, seeing the individuals finish a program and be able to walk away with those certifications. For us, because our program is infrastructure-based, sometimes we kind of forget about the individual. We're not very engaged with the individuals, our partners are. And so for us, we definitely find any way that we can go and show up and actually get to meet these people, because that's really what it's all for. I mean, yes, we want to help employers, but really we want to help communities see new opportunities that, maybe hadn't been available to them in the past.
Absolutely.
That being said, we're going to just play this video really quick. University of Missouri St. Louis is one of our partners, and we did a brief video to kind of talk about their teacher ed programming and the impact that it's had on individuals.
I always knew they were busy and worked very hard, but I have a new appreciation for teachers. Going through COVID, I was on the other side of it with doing virtual learning and just seeing what the teachers did when kids started going back to school, just seeing that their job never stops. Definitely a new appreciation for what teachers do, and I love it. My name is Sarah Troy. I currently am a first grade teacher at Armstrong Elementary in the Hazelwood School District, and just recently got my initial certification through the teaching residency program with UMSL.
Being an educator within itself is truly impactful. However, to know that there is a community behind you to support you with that decision, I believe that that's the greatest impact. I'm Erica Williams. I went through the UMSL Teach and Residency Apprenticeship. Currently, I'm a third grade ELA as well as math teacher now. Also grade level chair, mentor, and instructional coach. I came into the apprenticeship just by way of my son not meeting those developmental milestones. And so I decided to start volunteering within his classroom. Eventually I realized, hey, this is where I wanted to go. I kind of found my niche. And so I decided to jump into the role of being an educator.
I grew up in St. Louis public schools, so I always wanted to teach in the St. Louis public schools, typically high school and typically special education. So UMSL gave me the opportunity to do that. My name is Keisha. I am a certified special education teacher. I had been substitute teaching for a while, so why not cross the line and get the credentials that you need to get the full benefits as a teacher? So I was pretty excited. What made me specifically wanted to work with special education is I always felt like those kids was left on the back burner, and so I always wanted to advocate for the special need kids.
I like that it was all online because I have 2 kids with crazy schedules, and I could easily do my work whenever the time allowed throughout the week. The knowledge that I've gotten over the last 2 years was more than I ever thought I could have gotten. And also the knowledge I'm learning from several veteran teachers and my mentors and Ms. Prather that's in charge of the program through Hazelwood. It's just nice. The huge support system I've had has been fantastic.
This apprenticeship inspired me to continue, to keep going, as well as provided leadership ability, being able to empower others. So I believe it provided such a well-rounded experience for me.
If I could describe my experience in one word, it would be enriching. I learned a lot of things that I needed to learn that set me up to be a successful special education teacher.
The advice that I would give is you have to go for it. Life will happen, challenges will come, but you still will have to go for it and you will not regret it.
The advice that I have for people that's considering the program is to just do it. Just walk into it, do it. You have the support. The staff is excellent about working with your schedule and being flexible.
If there's one word to describe my experience on the program, I would say beneficial. It's benefited not only my family life, my work life. I want to come to work every day. I just appreciate my job. I appreciate the people around me. I appreciate my family more, and it doesn't take away from my life like my other job did. It actually, I feel like it's enhanced it more.
We love that.
Yeah, I've seen that video probably 15 times and it never gets old. I love it. All right, so I know we probably have about 10 minutes left, so just to kind of wrap this up, we do have some really important topics we wanted to bring up as far as regional success. We think, focusing on these topics has brought us success, so we want to mention these to you, and also we will have questions after each one, so you can kind of think about your region, what you can do to improve in your area, and just kind of be thinking of ways to continue for success. So we'll start with target industries. So really selecting a set list of target industries that you want to stay focused on, or splitting that up by staff people to have specialists in each area. That way you can kind of become your own expert in that area. So we've got 3 target industries, and it makes it so much easier for us to really focus on that and make sure that we've got a good grasp on each individual one, because they are so different. Each one is so different and comes with their own challenges. So being able to stay focused on a couple and just kind of creating that expertise for them. Really, to do that using labor market information, which we all know, and employer input to help prioritize those high growth and high demand sectors. And then focusing on industries that are, more open to integrating apprenticeships also helps as well. So the question for this one for you all to think about is, what industries really drive your region, and what industries can you stay focused on? So next topic is going to be collaboration driven. So you want to really form or strengthen partnerships to foster ongoing industry engagement and shared training solutions. Locate partners who can serve the needs of employers and are willing to, go the extra mile and develop that strong relationship with you as far as collaborating. So the question there for collaboration would, how could you improve your communication with new and your existing partners? And then we also have streamlined systems. So simplify that registered apprenticeship program process through really strong, university, college, community, and employer partnerships. Having customized technical assistance for different partner types based on their level of readiness, I think has really helped us, be successful in the different parts of, our apprenticeship programs that we work with. Offer training and resources for organizations with potential to become, very effective intermediaries. And then designing, systems with scalability in mind, of course. So processes and tools can grow alongside that increased demand. So the question for that would be, what partners have a good foundation for being an intermediary?
We have another 3 we'll breeze through. Other pieces of this, equity and outcomes. How can you plan for focused outreach that is going to get into these target industries or these target communities that maybe haven't been focused on enough in the past? And using data-driven decision-making to ensure your continuous improvement. Right now, there's another live-streamed presentation that Eric's doing that has a lot of that market information that can really assist in making sure that you're reaching into the communities that need it most. So question there is, what populations in your area need the most support for outreach or outreach efforts? And what community partners could help in reaching those populations? Our grant can't do wraparound services, so for us it's how can we find a partner who can maybe fill in those areas that our grant doesn't service. It's really the braiding of all of these funds. Another piece is inspiring growth. So you don't just want to start a program, you want it to scale. You want to keep adding employers, keep impacting more individuals and building your capacity. So finding your employer or participant champions. There's the Apprentice Ambassador program that Illinois has been doing in finding those people who say, like, this really works, this really impacts, both employers and individuals. Success stories and testimonials. Again, trying to give it that human aspect. So what partners would be great as champions of your program? Who's already bought in? And then getting creative. Don't be afraid to try something new that no one's already done. Apprenticeships are replicable, but you should be up for trying something new that may work better for your community than what somebody else is doing. Teacher-ed programs weren't happening, and I was almost slightly discouraged from going for them, but it works so great. And being that our region stretches into a lot of rural Illinois, framing it around that accessibility piece, especially when it comes to transportation, we were able to build something that works really well for our area. Our region does a lot of first-in-the-nation programs for individuals with disabilities, or the food trucks, or, there's, just because you may look on the occupations finder and see that there's no registered program, doesn't mean that there can't be. So get creative, jump in. If there's something that you want to try out that you've got enough partners for, give it a go. And generally your ATRs will be enthusiastic to help you figure that out. So is there a role that an employer is asking you for that you cannot find an existing RAP standard for? Who could you connect with to develop your own? Finding those training partners, finding the employer who's going to host that OJT, build a team of people, and your program will fall into place pretty naturally. All right, we got 5 minutes, guys. Our contact information is here, so feel free to reach out if you want to talk about one specific program or more about how to build out that hub. And then questions, we're going to bring around the microphone for, make sure that they can hear online.
Yep, online. So please wait till you have a microphone so our online audience can hear. And there is one question on the app that's got a lot of upvotes, so we'll start there. So the question is, what is the average time frame for registering a new apprenticeship program from the first employer visit all the way through the approval of the program until an apprentice is hired?
So that entirely depends on what the program is. Does something already exist for it? The early childhood program, we got that one, with STAR. Happened pretty lickety split because they had people who wanted to do the program, they had employers who wanted to hire the individuals, and they had a framework of training to put into their standards. So that program, I think the turnaround ended up being 3 weeks before they were ready to start their first cohort in the pre-apprenticeship program. We have other programs that we've been working on for 2 years that we still haven't gotten through because those partners maybe have too many internal silos, or they have, maybe buy-in in one part and not in the other. So it's a broad range. I wish I had a better answer for that one, but it very much depends on who you're working with and what the program is. And if you're starting from scratch with something that there's no standards for, definitely anticipate a bit more time and thought going into that. I think you're looking at minimum of, I'm looking at Darlene, like 6 months minimum when you're starting from scratch, because you really are having to build out something that nobody's done before.
It's real simple. I just wanted to know, I know you said 19 counties, and so does that include Cook County?
No, right now we're only in Southern Illinois. We were closing out our 3 community college districts, so Lewis and Clark, Swick, and Kaskaskia, but we are looking at just roping in the entire state of Illinois with how many technical assistance calls we do, and that, McKendree's program stretches all through the state, but we're not able to pay employer incentives for the employers that maybe are outside of our current county, and so we are looking at expanding that to make sure that we're able to kind of wrap in everybody that we're working with. So we'll keep everybody updated on that one. We're hopeful that that'll be successful.
Thanks so much for your presentation. It was fantastic. My question's kind of 2 parts. Have you worked with any sectors or employers that were hesitant about the apprenticeship idea due to unions? Or were there any other times where you engaged with a partner or sector that was just kind of like half in, half out on just the concept of apprenticeship?
The bioscience industry entirely. All the way across, you look at a Thermo Fisher, Mallinckrodt, for them it's very much, they're heavily overseen by the FDA, and are these individuals going to be able to meet all of those requirements? And they work largely with the union there at Mallinckrodt, and so they have buy-in from people who wish they could make the decisions but can't. So that is a challenge, and sometimes those unions are kind of a stop, and it's let's revisit this in a year when we've had a little bit more time to try to flesh it out. We've had some people bring up concerns in the teacher ed of like sharing wage information and things of that nature, and we really try to make sure that they know, like, I'm not asking what this individual person is making. We're asking what's your minimum pay for a paraprofessional and your minimum starting teacher wages. That information is generally pretty publicly available, and it's not targeting out an individual in their own wage. That I think is the only thing that we've had in the education part. The healthcare is, do we have the people to support these individuals while they're training? Do we have enough staff to support the mentorship piece of this? And that is one of the biggest challenges that you see in healthcare is they're like, I would love to do this. And we think it's a great idea, but we have absolutely nobody internally, we're at max capacity. And that's really the challenge that you see there. So every industry, I think, has their own challenges. And it is how can we come up with something that maybe makes this work? A lot of it is, especially when you look at the community colleges, how can we bring somebody to the site to assist with some of that oversight?
And do we have time for one more? Maybe? Okay, so, and for those of you who have the app, you can ask questions. The slide deck is also on the Whova app if you want to grab their contact information later. And then I think we have time for one more.
Afterward. So I don't want to
Okay.
leave people. Come on.
Okay, yeah,
afterward.
because
We want people to get their break before
yeah,
12:30.
yeah. So everyone, take your break.
Thank you.
and then-
Thank you. Same. Oh my God. My nose wasn't running the whole time.